What if I told you that the $50 propane heater you love so much is the #1 reason you went home empty-handed last weekend? Sounds crazy, right? We spend hundreds, even thousands on gear to give us an edge. But the one thing we all use for comfort might be our biggest liability. Today, we're diving into a controversial idea. Is the heat from your cozy ice shanty actually making the fish outside too lazy, too lethargic to bite? Stick around, because what we're about to uncover might just change the way you heat your shelter forever. We're going to look at why your comfort might be your worst enemy on the ice. So, let me ask you right now, do you think this is a load of bull? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear it. For years, the whole goal of ice fishing has been to conquer the cold. We've evolved from sitting on a 5-gallon bucket in a blizzard to lounging in insulated, heated palaces on the ice. We fire up the Mr. Buddy, take off our jackets, and sip hot coffee while watching a flasher. It is the absolute dream. But in our quest for total comfort, we got so focused on our own experience that we never stopped to ask a critical question. What does the fish think about all this? The common wisdom has always been that what happens in the shanty stays in the shanty. The ice is a solid barrier, a shield between our world and theirs. Well, as we're about to find out, that shield might not be as solid as we've always believed. Let's start with the basic science of it, but keep it simple. Heat doesn't just disappear. It has to go somewhere. When you've got a heater blasting inside your shanty, it's not just warming the air you breathe. It's warming the floor, the gear, and the ice itself directly beneath you. Think about it like putting a warm pan on a block of ice. It doesn't just melt from the top. The cold is affected all around it. That thermal energy slowly, but surely, conducts its way through the frozen water. We often underestimate just how much energy we're pumping into that small, contained space. We're essentially creating a hotspot on a massive, stable, cold environment. And nature always reacts to these kinds of changes, no matter how small we think they are. This is the foundation of the whole theory, the simple transfer of energy from your comfort zone into their world. So where does that heat go? It creates what you could call a thermal bubble or a warm water plume directly under your ice hole. Now, we're not talking about boiling water here. The change might be incredibly subtle, maybe just a degree or two. To us, that's nothing. But to a fish, a creature whose entire body and metabolism is dictated by the temperature of the water, a 1 or 2 degree shift is like walking from an air-conditioned room into the summer heat. It's a noticeable and potentially uncomfortable change. This bubble of slightly warmer water can extend several feet down and out from your hole, creating an invisible barrier that can dramatically influence the behavior of any fish that comes near your presentation. It's an artificial environment, and fish are hardwired to be suspicious of anything that feels unnatural. Now let's consider what this does to the fish itself. Fish are cold-blooded. This means their body temperature matches their surroundings. Their metabolism, their energy level, everything is tuned to the stable, cold temperature of the water under the ice. When they encounter this plume of warmer water, it can send mixed signals. In theory, slightly warmer water could increase their metabolism, but it's the sudden, unnatural change that's the problem. It can be stressful. Think of it like this. If you're perfectly comfortable in a 70-degree room and someone opens a door to a 90-degree room, you don't immediately feel better. You feel a jarring change. For a fish, this could make them less aggressive, more cautious, and ultimately, less likely to commit to eating your bait. Let's paint a picture. You're sitting there, heater on full blast. The water directly in your ice hole, and for a few feet below it, is now a balmy 35 degrees instead of the 33 degrees it is everywhere else. Your jig and minnow are dangling right in the middle of this warm spot. It's a tiny, isolated pocket of thermal change. To you, up in the shanty, everything looks perfect on the vexillar. You see a mark approach, It gets close, hovers for a second, and then vanishes. You blame the fish for being finicky. But what if that fish, cruising along in its stable 33-degree world, felt that wall of warmer water and just hit the brakes? It's like an invisible force field that your electronics can't see. Now, let's think about the fish that's swimming 10 feet away from your hole. It's in its comfort zone. The water temperature is stable, predictable, and it's exactly where that fish expects to find its next meal. It's active, it's hunting, and it's behaving naturally. Your bait, however, is on the other side of this thermal line, inside the bubble. From the fish's perspective, why would it leave its perfect, stable environment to enter a weird, unnaturally warm pocket of water just for a single minnow? It goes against every survival instinct it has. Fish are programmed to conserve energy and avoid unpredictable situations. Your heated hole might be signaling danger or weirdness long before the fish ever even sees your lure. The big question then becomes, why would a fish ever choose to enter this zone of thermal chaos? The answer is, most of the time, it probably won't, unless it's extremely aggressive or very hungry. For a neutral or negative fish, that subtle temperature change is an easy excuse to turn away. It's an anomaly in their otherwise predictable world. We see this all the time with structure. Fish relate to weed lines, drop-offs, and rock piles because they are predictable. An invisible patch of warm water is the opposite of that. It's a confusing signal that doesn't compute. So the fish that you mark on your flasher might just be investigating the anomaly from a safe distance before deciding it's not worth the risk. Let's not forget about your bait. This whole situation could be affecting your presentation too. Imagine you're using a live minnow. In the normal frigid water, it behaves a certain way. It has a certain energy level. But when you drop it into that slightly warmer water under your shanty, its behavior might change. It might become more active for a moment, and then more sluggish as it acclimates to the unnatural temperature. This could make it look less appealing to a predator fish that is looking for a specific type of action. The predator is used to seeing prey behave one way in cold water, and your bait is doing something different. It's another subtle cue that something isn't right. Now, I can already hear the objections. The most common one is, but the ice is 12 inches thick. It's a perfect insulator. And yes, ice is a decent insulator, but it's not a perfect one. It doesn't completely stop the transfer of heat, it just slows it down. If you run a heater for 4, 6, or 8 hours in the same spot, that's a long time for that slow transfer of energy to take place. The heat is constantly radiating downwards from the floor of your shanty. It's a continuous process. Over the course of a day, it's more than enough time to influence the water temperature by that crucial 1 or 2 degrees. We've been taught to think of ice as a solid wall, but in terms of energy, it's more like a frosted window. It slows things down, but it doesn't stop them. Think about how your shanty gets warm. The hot air rises, sure, but a lot of that heat is absorbed by the floor. If you have black floors, like in many popular shelters, they become excellent heat absorbers. That heat has only one place to go, down into the ice. It's simple conduction. It's the same reason you can't hold a hot pan for long, even with an oven mitt. Eventually, the heat gets through. The constant focused heat source from your heater, combined with a dark-colored floor, creates the perfect recipe for slowly but surely warming the ice and the water directly beneath you. It's not a fast process, but ice fishing is a game of patience, and that heat has all day to do its work. Here's a real-world example we've all seen. Think about a bright, sunny day on the ice, even when it's freezing out. You can feel the warmth of the sun on your face. That same solar energy is hitting the ice, and in some cases, it can be enough to create a thin layer of melt on the surface. That proves that thermal energy can and does travel through the ice from above. Your heater is basically a miniature concentrated sun pointed directly at one spot on the ice for hours on end. If the sun can affect the ice from 93 million miles away, it's not a stretch to think your propane heater, just a few feet away, is having a significant localized effect on the water below. So how does this affect different types of fish? Let's talk about the king of the hard water for many anglers, the walleye. Walleyes are notoriously sensitive. They're sensitive to light, barometric pressure, and definitely to temperature. They seek out very specific temperature ranges where they are most comfortable and feed most actively. A sudden, unnatural warm spot could be more than enough to put them on high alert. A walleye approaching your bait might feel that temperature change and interpret it as a threat, or at the very least, as something that isn't right. This could be why you mark so many walleyes that refuse to commit. They sense the trap before they even see the lure. That tiny change in the water is a huge deal for a finicky fish. Imagine a big, lazy walleye cruising along a drop-off. Everything is perfect. Then, it senses this plume of warmer water. It's not something it would ever encounter naturally in the middle of winter. Its brain, which has evolved over thousands of years, tells it that something is wrong. Its feeding instinct might get overridden by its survival instinct. So it simply veers off, just a few feet, to go around your comfort bubble. You never even know it was there, or you see it as a faint flicker on the edge of your cone angle before it disappears. The fish didn't reject your lure. It rejected your entire setup. What about panfish? Let's take crappies and perch. They often suspend in the water column and can be a little more tolerant of changes than a picky walleye. However, they are still creatures of habit and instinct. They school up and hold at specific depths for a reason, and a big part of that reason is water temperature and stability. While a single perch might be dumb enough to wander into your warm zone, a whole school of them might be hesitant. They prefer stable conditions. An unnatural warm current could be enough to push the entire school to a different part of the structure, just outside the range of your influence. You might pick off one or two, but you miss out on the massive school that's holding just 20 feet away in more stable water. Let's get back to instinct. The number one job of any wild animal is to survive. Survival means finding food while expending the least amount of energy and taking the fewest risks. Stability is safe. Change is risky. An unnaturally warm spot under the ice in the dead of winter is a massive change. It's a red flag. The fish's instinct isn't to think, "Oh, a warm spa, how nice." Its instinct is to think, "This is not normal. I should avoid this." We are creating a signal of abnormality right where we want the fish to be most comfortable and confident. We are, in effect, accidentally spooking them with our own comfort. Now, I know what many of you are thinking. I've been fishing with my heater blasting for 20 years, and I catch tons of fish. And you know what? I don't doubt that for a second. This isn't a magic fish repellent that guarantees you'll get skunked. Aggressive fish will still bite. If you're on a massive school of feeding perch, you're going to catch them no matter what. This isn't about the days when the bite is on fire. This theory is about all those other days, the slow days, the days where you have to work for every single bite. On those days, every tiny little detail matters. The real question isn't, can you catch fish with a heater on? The real question is, how many more fish could you have caught with the heater off or on low? That's the key. We're talking about the difference between catching 5 walleyes and catching 15. It's about converting those tentative marks on the flasher into actual fish on the ice. On a tough bite, the angler who pays attention to these small details is the one who goes home with a limit. Your heater might not be stopping you from catching fish, but it could be stopping you from having an epic day. So, here's a practical experiment you can try on your next trip out. Find a good spot where you're marking fish. For the first hour, fish like you normally would, with the heater on, keeping you nice and comfortable. Pay close attention to how many bites you get and, more importantly, how many fish you mark that don't commit. Then, for For the second hour, turn the heater completely off. Yes, it'll get cold, but this is for science. See if the attitude of the fish changes. Do those tentative marks turn into aggressive bites? It's a simple A/B test that can give you a definitive answer for your lake and your species. If you don't want to freeze, here's another option. Most of us fish in a shanty with 2 holes inside. Try fishing one hole inside the shanty with the heater on, and drill another hole just outside your shanty door. Use a longer rod to fish that outside hole from the comfort of your chair. You now have a perfect control group. One line is in the heated zone, and the other is in the natural ambient water temperature just a few feet away. I would be willing to bet that on many days, you'll see significantly more action on that outside rod. This test removes all other variables and focuses purely on the effect of the heated shanty. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying you need to go back to freezing on a bucket. The point of this isn't to be miserable. The point is to be strategic. It's about finding a balance between your comfort and your effectiveness. Maybe you don't need the heater on high all day. Perhaps you only need it on low, just enough to keep the holes from freezing over and to take the chill out of the air. Or maybe you run it for 20 minutes every hour to warm up, and then turn it off to let the environment under you stabilize. It's about being a thinking angler, not just a comfortable one. So the ultimate takeaway here is this. We need to adjust our mindset. An ice shanty isn't just a living room that we dragged out onto the lake. It is a piece of fishing equipment. And like any piece of equipment, it can be used correctly or incorrectly. By cranking the heat without considering the consequences, we might be using it incorrectly. The simple act of turning down that dial, of sacrificing a little bit of t-shirt weather comfort for a more natural presentation, could be the single most important adjustment you make this entire ice fishing season. It's time to start thinking about how our presence affects their world. So, let's bring this all home. For decades, we've been so obsessed with creating a warm, comfortable bubble for ourselves that we may have accidentally created a dead zone for the fish right below our feet. The very tool we rely on for survival and comfort out on the ice, our heater, could be subtly changing the environment just enough to make fish wary, lethargic, or simply uninterested in what we're offering. The biggest aha moment here, the real turning point, is realizing that on those slow days, the problem might not be the fish, the weather, or bad luck. The problem might be us. It's our setup. This changes everything, because it gives you back control. Instead of just hoping the fish will bite, you can now actively change your immediate environment to be more natural and inviting for them. It's a simple change that could have a massive impact. Thank you for sticking with me through this deep dive. If this theory blew your mind a little, or if you're going to try turning down the heat on your next trip, do me a favor and hit that like button. And of course, subscribe for more tips that challenge old-school thinking. Now I have to ask you, what's the coldest you've ever been while ice fishing? And was it worth it? Let me know your best story in the comments below.